but you can't tell anyone. I'm a cook food woman. I cannot cook food. I don't know how to cook food because I'm homosexual. Rex has risen. White girls fuck dogs. I said my dog licks my ass. I didn't say I fucked him. I don't fuck dogs. I let them lick my ass. She's a trap that fucks dogs. You're a fucking nigger that picks cotton. Shut the fuck up. Fucking nigger. Nigger that picks cotton.
Gross, and you probably don't even work, do you? Because you're so fucking lazy because you smoke marijuana all day. So, whatever. The bottom line is, what are you laughing about? What's
because
so funny?
This is going on News 8.
Oh, good. It's going on.
Because you don't care, right? You don't care, right, ma'am? This is going on News 8.
You don't. I am contacting my lawyer.
This is going on News 8. Ma'am, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me, or that's assault and battery. You're going on News 8 for swearing and for saying you don't do this and that. Yeah, exactly. You don't give a what about us?
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, I've never understood why black people joined and continue to join the military. I don't understand why a black person would go to war for this country that still votes every 25 years whether they'll allow you to continue to vote or not. Historically, we have fought for this country's freedom more than we fought for our own. We fight to put on their uniforms to go do their job. And if you can go to war to go fight for a country that never respected you or even saw you as a human, then it shouldn't be a problem to go to war for yourself and for your children and future generations. But no matter how bad we're treated, we continue to run and sign up to go join their army. They say the first person to ever die for America was a black man named Crispus Attucks. And during the Revolutionary War, George Washington was getting crushed until he ran to black people for help. He promised freedom to any black person who helped him fight. But as soon as the war was over, he went back on his word and passed the Fugitive Slave Act. And he tried to send back as many people as he could who went up north to help him fight the war. And it led to so many black people who were already free being kidnapped and sent into slavery, including children. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing in the Civil War. When he was losing the war, he promised black people freedom. But in reality, he didn't free a single person. And then after the Civil War, the dominant society specifically attacked black veterans because most of them were armed and trained soldiers, which America has always feared. They went out of their way to lynch black people still in their military uniforms just to send a message. Back in 1918, a brother named Charles Lewis, who was literally on his way home from serving in World War I. Now, this brother Charles Lewis was waiting on the train to go home when the sheriff got on the train looking for what he said was a robbery suspect. So the cop approached this brother, who was still in uniform, and he showed him his paperwork, but they got into an argument. So the cops charged his brother Charles Lewis with assault and resisting arrest. So that night, a mob of 100 broke into the jail, pulled his brother Charles Lewis out of his cell, and then they beat him before they hung him and left his body there while he was still wearing his uniform. During the Red Summer in 1919, another brother who was a veteran, Lucius McCarty, was lynched in Louisiana. They accused his brother Lucius McCarty of attempting to assault a white woman. And the lynch mob of close to 1,500 shot more than 1,000 rounds into his body. Then they tied his dead body to a car and drug him through the black neighborhoods to send a message. Then they threw whatever was left of his body into a bonfire. It didn't matter he was a veteran that just fought in World War I. After World War II, they treated the Nazis they captured better than the black soldiers that fought with them. But black people never stopped joining the army when we never had a place there. And it never meant any kind of protection for us as a whole or even one person individually. In Pennsylvania, a brother that was a veteran, Everett Palmer Jr., died in police custody 2 days after he turned himself in for a DUI. Now let's see what led to the death of this brother Everett Palmer Jr.
The tortured story of a family in Queens trying to figure out how and why their son and their brother, an Army veteran, died in police custody in Pennsylvania. 14 months ago, he was driving back home when he stopped at a police station to try to clear up an old summons. And that's where he died, in jail. Now his family on a mission to find out what happened. Here's Josh Einiger.
It's been 14 months of sorrow, of pain.
It's devastating. Our family is devastated.
But after all this time, Dwayne Palmer is no closer to an answer, no closer to knowing what happened to his brother Everett.
You vacillate between depression, anger, for quest and thirst for information.
41-year-old Everett Palmer was a Queens-born father of two, an Army vet. On April 7th of last year, he presented himself to the police in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for a past drunk driving case. They arrested him on the spot, but after 2 days at the York County Prison, he died in custody.
I haven't seen a case with more unanswered questions than this one.
Family attorney Lee Merritt says the Palmers have waited long enough. They do have an autopsy report which suggests Palmer was somehow high on meth, even after 2 days in jail, and needed to be restrained. As for the manner of death, that's still undetermined.
Where's the narrative? When are you going to tell this family who's been waiting for 14 months what actually happened? And they're not looking for someone to blame. They're looking for answers.
But the coroner says the Palmer family won't be getting those answers anytime soon. Justice in central Pennsylvania, she says, will not be rushed.
We are in an era where people see a TV show and they think it's solved in an hour and they think that's how this works. But this is not how this works.
My mom had 5 children. She now has 4 children. And we have no credible explanation as to why her second child, Everett Palmer Jr., is no longer with us.
The district attorney in York County, Pennsylvania, has jurisdiction over this case. His office told me tonight they'd have no comment because of an active investigation. But 14 months into that investigation, Everett Palmer's family wonders how much longer they'll have to wait.
Now, back in 2016, his brother Everett Palmer Jr. got into a single-car accident. When the paramedics came, they said they smelled alcohol and he was over the legal limit. But this brother ended up getting hurt to the point where he had to be flown to York Hospital. But they charged him and gave his brother a court date. And I'm not sure if he was aware of it because he was in the hospital or what happened. So then when his brother did find out he had a warrant, he went to go turn himself in to clear things up. And the police arrested him and sent him to York prison. So after being in jail for 2 days in a single cell, at 4:30 in the morning, they said he became agitated and started hitting his head against the cell. So they took him back to York Hospital where he was pronounced dead not even an hour and a half later. Now, there's no real explanation on how he died. There's no witnesses. There's no cameras. His family hired their own forensic pathologist who said his injuries aren't consistent with suicide. But the coroner, Pam Gay, blamed it on anything that could be self-inflicted. 1 minute they say he died from banging his head on the cell. Then the coroner said he had meth in the system, plus he had sickle cell, which made him agitated and bang his head against the wall, and all of these factors had to do with his death.
Yeah, it was April 2018 when Everett Palmer Jr. was taken from his cell here at the York County Prison, taken to York Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now there are a lot of questions about how he died. Pennsylvania State Police are investigating because Palmer was a prison inmate at the York County Prison. He was here because of DUI charges dating back to 2016. The coroner says he was in a single cell when he became agitated and hit his head against the inside of his cell door. The coroner says Palmer's excited state, associated with methamphetamine toxicity during restraint, led to his death.
One of the questions I'm getting is how the methamphetamine got into the system. That's certainly one of the things that we're looking at, that law enforcement is looking at.
But the manner of death is still undetermined. The coroner says a contributing factor is probable sickling red cell disorder, which can cause shortness of breath. The attorney for Palmer's family was interviewed by CNN. He wants the York County District Attorney to conduct a thorough investigation into what happened in the cell.
Gathering any reports about physical contact that was required in that cell, releasing the videos to the family and to their attorney so that we can see what happened.
The coroner says that the inmate's family has its own forensic pathologist to look into the death, including looking at his heart, brain, and throat, which is still being held as part of the investigation. The coroner says that this case has led to threats being placed against her, and she tells me that there is now extra security in place outside her office building where the York County coroner is located.
Now, this brother Everett Palmer Jr. had been in jail for 2 days kept in a single cell, but they claim he became agitated because he was high off meth. Now, I don't know if they got the right demographic because this brother has no history of being on meth. We know this brother may have been drunk before, but there's no evidence he's ever been high off meth. Now, the forensic pathologist the family hired can't finish their autopsy because the coroner, Pam Gay, took this brother's brain, heart, and throat before sending the body back.
Everett Palmer Jr. died in April 2018. Now, he was on his way from Delaware to Queens to visit family here, but stopped off in York, Pennsylvania to take care of an outstanding warrant having to do with the DUI. 2 days later, his family is told that he died in police custody after an incident, quote, following an excited state, and that he hit his head on the cell door and was restrained. Now, his body was returned to his family, but missing organs, the heart, throat, and the brain. And now, it's not unusual for organs to be removed and held after autopsies. However, the family has sought to get samples of the organs so their own pathologist can do testing, but has hit roadblock after roadblock. They say the coroner has ruled out death from natural causes and suicide, but the cause of death remains inconclusive. His heartbroken mother believes there's more to all of this.
The most frustrating part is my son being murdered and no longer being in our lives. How he was murdered and not having any answers.
To this point, when we have made demands, we've either gotten no response at all or vague promises for clarity in the future, and that future has not come quick enough.
Now, methamphetamine toxicity was cited in the ME report, but the family says he never used meth. The family feels very strongly that there's some sort of cover-up here. Now, Everett Palmer Jr., he was an Army veteran and also the father of two.
One of the things that our attorney, Martin Curtin, Esquire, said, that we don't believe that my brother's death was a suicide as first indicated. So what we do know is that on April 9th, we were informed of his death from the York County Coroner's Office. And they said that they alleged that he had beat his head against the cells and then subsequently died from his injuries. We know that from the doctor that we hired that is not the determinative cause of death at all. As a matter of fact, we know that when we received his body for burial, that there was significant bruising in about his head and his arms and his body. We know that his head was damaged so severely that in order for us to have an open casket, we had to have a covering for his head.
And that's tell us, why else are they not responding to our demands for my son's organs? And they said 90 days, it's been over 90 days. And I want to know why my son is no longer with us. Hopefully none of you will ever have to lose a child, and you'll never have to know the pain. And especially in a way that he has died. And I believe that they beat him in the cell. They tased him. I believe they destroyed his heart while tasing him. I believe they beat him so bad on his head, they damaged the brain. And I believe they choked him to death after that. And that's why they took those 3 organs. That's our belief. And because they're not returning the organs to us, I stand by that belief. And we want answers, and we want justice for my son. My son was 41 years old. He was a good man, father, loving son, loving brother, loving friend. And he served this country, and there's no reason for him to have to die, period, and die that way.
Now, not only did they take this brother's brain, heart, and throat without asking the family's permission, they sent his body back without even informing the family they took his organs. They only found out because they hired somebody to do their own autopsy. And this coroner, Pam Gay, talking about cases don't be solved in an hour like on TV, like it hasn't been 14 months. And it doesn't usually take a coroner 2 years. And plus, what does his throat have to do with anything they said happened to him? And now they're doing everything they can to block the family from even getting tissues of his organs. Now, I know I wouldn't trust him with any of my organs. We seen what happened with the sister Henrietta Lacks. But this is the reason we need our own everything, including our own to do our own investigations. In South Bend, Indiana, another brother, Eric Logan, was shot by police. Sgt Ryan O'Neill. Now, they claim this brother was breaking into cars. And when this cop Ryan O'Neill approached him, he said this brother, Eric Logan, had a knife in his hand. He said when he told him to drop it, he had the knife over his head in his hand, raising it towards the cop. And he refused to drop it and comply, so he had no other choice but to shoot him. But then on a police call, you heard him say he threw the knife, and then he shot him, meaning he didn't have a knife in his hand when he shot him. Now, even though this cop was supposed to have his body camera on, he didn't turn it on. And he didn't have his dash cameras on because he never turned his police lights on. I guess he stopped and just accused a random black man of breaking into cars. And his brother Ryan Logan has no history of stealing, has no history of breaking into cars. But this cop Ryan O'Neill does have a history of being racist. While he was training another cop, he saw a black woman walking, and he asked him, "Do you want some of that dark meat?" Then when he passed a black man walking with a white woman, he said, "I hate seeing that. It makes me sick. It makes me want to throw up," which is the classic story of America. And since the mayor Pete Buttigieg took over, he fired the black police chief who was suing the city for discrimination and has only ever appointed white police chiefs ever since. And since this mayor been in office, the police are less diverse and now 90% of cops are white. And most probably have mindsets like the cop Ryan O'Neill. But until we learn how to defend ourselves before defending the country who attacks us, then we're going to continue to get the same results. You can't beg or ask somebody for power because they can take it away at any time. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And until we get on code, it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again.
Now, Democratic candidate Pete Buttigieg off to a fast start, but now facing a firestorm in his own community. The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, was confronted by angry residents after the fatal shooting of a black man by a white police officer. Our chief national affairs correspondent Tom Yamas here with the story. Good morning, Tom.
George, good morning to you. And you will remember when you sat down with Mayor Pete right here in GMA, he said he was qualified to run for president because he's dealt with tough issues in the past, like racially sensitive officer-involved shootings. Well, it's happened again in his city, and this time the tension is mounting.
Get the people that are racist off the streets.
This morning, Mayor Pete Buttigieg trying to balance a city on edge with his quest to be president. On Sunday, facing outraged residents in his hometown of South Bend, Indiana. The meeting called to address the shooting death of Eric Logan by a white police officer.
These people was unheard. That's why y'all getting the reaction y'all getting. So stop telling people shut up.
Buttigieg remaining calm, even while being constantly interrupted by fired-up constituents.
That is their last day on the street. I would love to be able to finish my reply if that's okay.
Another unit here, guy threw a knife at me.
The officer claims Logan, who was allegedly breaking into cars, had a knife and ignored repeated demands to drop it. But the officer didn't activate his body cam.
I don't
Thank you, ma'am.
fear nobody.
Now, residents are demanding action. The Democratic candidate coming off the campaign trail to answer questions. Logan's mother even confronting the mayor in front of cameras.
I've been in hell all my life. And y'all ain't doing a damn thing about me or my son or none of these people out here. It's time for you to do something. If you can't do it, step your down. And I'm tired of talking now. And I'm tired of hearing your lies. Right. Amen.
We asked Buttigieg about his city's brewing tensions and his leadership.
And these issues aren't easy. Part of how you earn your paycheck as a mayor is to walk into no-win situations. But we've done a lot of work. We've got a lot of work to do together.
And the timing of this critical issue for his city is tricky. He insists his campaign for president will go on, telling reporters yesterday he plans to participate in this week's debate and continue to serve his community to the best of his ability. But guys, he's 3 days away from that first primary debate. Incredibly important. It's likely to come up in the debate.
This is my 18-year-old son. I'm training him on how to survive and come home to us. So he's doing everything. The cop's getting out of the car now. And by the time the cop gets out of the car, he's been instructed before he pulls over to let all the windows down. All of his registration and insurance information and his driver's license whenever he drives the car is all clipped to his visor and the keys. So I've instructed him that the best thing to do is to place all three of those items, driver's license, insurance, and registration, and his keys on top of the car, and to have both hands outside of the car when the cop comes up. That way, when the cop comes up, anything that he needs, he can take from the top of the car. He can clearly see that he has no threat here. And I've also instructed my son, because the cop will more than likely tell him he can relax, he can put his hands inside the car, he's instructed to tell the cop that my father has advised me to stay in this position until you return to your car and you tell me that I'm free to go. This way that our young men will continue to come home. I purchased my son a car for his graduation, and I did not want to leave him unprepared as he traveled on the streets in Sarasota. And unfortunately, in the neighborhood that we live in right now, there has been an increase in policing due to some recent shootings. It's totally understandable in that regard, but as a result, the cops have nothing to do when there's no shooting, so they pull people over randomly for seat belts and all of those things that normally would not occur if there wasn't an increase in policing in our community. This is a side effect to the shootings or shots being fired in our community, not necessarily due to anything other than the fact that they are out here to police in preparation for a shooting that may occur, but they got to have something to do in the meantime, and they're pulling people over, giving seatbelt tickets and all of those sorts of things. So I'm just trying to make sure that my son comes home, he's safe, and I hope that everybody in our community will share this video with their kids and teach them how to survive. Once again, recap: driver's license, registration, and insurance information, and the key to the vehicle are all placed on the hood of the car and hands outside. Now this car will not move, so the cop has no threat of him trying to run him over or anything like that. Cop is totally assured that he has an innocent person in the car.
You shouldn't even give them no information. This is illegal. This is illegal search.
Somebody else stopped you today?
Don't worry. No, he ain't got to answer no questions. He ain't got to answer no questions.
Just so you know, I got a body camera.
It don't matter. It ain't on though right now. You didn't press the button. I know law, bro. If you ain't committing no crime, you ain't got no business right here asking no question, interrogating them. This is a legal detain. What crime was committed? Who they say was watching? Who they said that did it? Who are you looking for? What's the person's name? What's the description of the person, officer? What's your badge number? What's your badge number?
Rosenbaum 161.
161? Okay. I'll be calling your office. They know who I am, Toy Battle. This is a legal search. You ain't supposed to do none of this. This is a legal stop, too. You have suspicion?
I'm not stopping.
You have suspicion? But you ain't supposed to ask that, though, because you're running them right now in leads.
You're free to go right now.
Yeah, you is free to go. He is free to go. He always free to go. And don't ask nobody else on how with their name without them committing crimes. That is illegal. Y'all time is almost up. All right? Don't ask nobody their name and their ID. That's illegal.
Everybody good out here?
Yeah, everybody always good out here. We only good when you ain't out here manipulating people. Have a nice day. Stop scanning people's names. Find some real criminals. Because next time it might cost you your badge. Yeah, for real. You know what the ultra-various law is? Stop breaking the law.
Not even Robert, man. You're getting harassed.
Harassed?
Yeah.
Oh man, I caught the
Sitting on the ground, ask him to sit next to you, bro.
Why don't you mind your business?
You need to stop that man sitting on the ground, man.
30.
Sitting on the ground.
You got him? You got him?
Yeah. I'm not running nowhere. Sir, get off me, sir. Sir, don't grab. Sir, get off me. Get the off me. Yo. Hey, look at
you need a Lowen Ashton.
Yo, what the y'all? Oh my God. I'm suing y'all, yo. I'm suing y'all, yo. Record
On the ground. Get on the ground now.
Man, you better.
Get on the ground.
Yo, what the
Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
Get your knee off of me.
You left that Lowen Ashton.
Bro.
Damn, Rob.
Yo, get on the ground. Hey, look, call my wife.
Ground.
Sit down. Call my wife. Sit down.
Sit down. Put your hand behind your back.
Sir, I can't.
Put your hand behind your back. There you go. He's putting it back.
I can't do nothing, yo.
Don't
beat me up. I'm suing y'all.
Put your hand behind your back.
All right, get off my neck.
Sir, resisting. Put your hand behind your back. Don't flip over here. You're jacked up, bro.
Yo.
There you go.
Hey, you see that? You see this? Y'all crazy, man.
Just need another unit or two.
Y'all can't. What is you touching me for? I didn't do nothing to you, my freedom of speech. Y'all is violating my amendments, yo. Y'all got me
Y'all don't know who y'all with, yo. I swear y'all don't. I'm showing you yo. Why you checking me? That illegal. He's under arrest, yes. For what? For what? What am I under arrest? Just go to jail. Take your charge like a man. For what? Take your charge. What am I going to jail for? Because you don't know how to act. Do you hear this? I don't know how to act. Hey, search him. He hasn't been searched. Don't ever interfere with. What did you say? I didn't hear you. Just relax. Hey, leave my scene. Go. Leave. Then don't you ever tell me how to do my job.
Police Commissioner Michael Harrison calls Sergeant Ethan Newberg's behavior disturbing and illegal.
WJZ is live at City Police Headquarters downtown. Paul Gessler has more of what we're learning tonight. Paul.
Well, Vic and Rick, last week, Commissioner Harrison called Newberg's actions disturbing, and today we got a glimpse of that body-worn camera video that led to criminal charges and was flagged by the Public Integrity Bureau.
Once you mind your business.
This is video the night of May 30th in southwest Baltimore. It shows a man urging Baltimore police to get a man off a wet sidewalk during a warrant check.
You got him? You got him?
Sergeant Ethan Newberg took exception and chased the man down.
The man did nothing to provoke Sergeant Newberg, whose actions were not just wrong, but deeply disturbing and illegal.
The disturbing and illegal part, according to Harrison and prosecutors, happens when Newberg's subordinate steps in and tackles the man.
I don't know how something like this would have been handled in the past, but I know that as soon as I saw this video, I knew how I would be handling it.
Last week, Harrison announced Sergeant Newberg, a 24-year veteran of the department, is facing charges of false imprisonment, second-degree assault, and misconduct in office. Newberg, a week prior, is caught on camera telling the man to accept his disorderly conduct charge.
Just go to jail. Take your charge like a man. For what? Take your charge. What am I going to jail for? Because you don't know how to act.
It is making their work even that much harder. It is making our compliance with the consent decree that much harder, and it is making building public trust with our community that much harder.
The city's police union last week blasted Commissioner Harrison's actions, calling them politically motivated. Harrison cites what he calls a horrible culture on display in the video, an officer who tried to intervene and de-escalate, who Newberg commanded to leave.
Just relax. Just leave my scene. Go. Leave. Then don't you ever tell me how to do my job.
Of note, Newberg, the sergeant now criminally charged, was Baltimore City's second highest paid employee last year. City records show he made $243,000, mostly in overtime. Back live now here at City Police Headquarters. I have put that body-worn camera video released to the media today on my Twitter and Facebook pages. A small group of us inside here today saw an extended, unredacted version of that video, and in it, Sergeant Newberg says of that neighborhood services officer who tried to calm him down, quote, "Take your hand-holding nonsense somewhere else. This is police work. This ain't no candlelight vigil."
There is growing outrage as dozens of police officers are accused of posting offensive and racist statements on social media. And now the investigation is expanding to other states. ABC's Gio Benitez is here with the story. Good morning, Gio.
Michael, good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're talking about public postings all across social media. And Philly's police commissioner believes they will undeniably impact the relationship between officers and the communities they serve. It's a massive investigation this morning from coast to coast.
No justice!
This morning, the Philadelphia Police Department under fire. Protests breaking out as 72 officers are taken off the streets, part of a social media scandal rocking 8 U.S. cities. The advocacy group Plainview Project compiling more than 5,000 racist and offensive Facebook posts allegedly made by 3,500 current and former officers nationwide.
We will not have racist police patrolling our streets.
The posts, some going back at least 8 years, include comments like "death to Islam," others promoting violence, one meme reading, "Get the protester plow," another saying, "I'll just shoot you and be done with it." The database also revealing multiple references to the Confederate flag.
It makes me sick, to be honest with you. It really makes me sick because we are in a position to know better.
The Philadelphia NAACP calling for those involved in the scandal to be fired, and the commissioner promising some would lose their jobs. But the police union standing behind its officers, saying it's premature and irresponsible for the commissioner to tell the public that police officers will be fired without a complete investigation. Our officers are entitled to due process just like any other citizen. Now, multiple departments are conducting internal reviews, including Phoenix and Dallas. In St. Louis, 22 officers are already under investigation, 3 placed on administrative leave. And Philadelphia's mayor calls the postings extremely disturbing. In a statement released by the commissioner, he says the comments do not in any way reflect the values and beliefs of the thousands of honorable officers who make up this department. But boy, so many questions this morning.
Please get out of my face. What the fuck out?
You've just assaulted.
Comfortable. What do I need to get rid of?
Glassware is not allowed at the pool.
Okay, so glassware. What else do I need to get rid of? For you to be comfortable. What else do I need to get rid of? Glassware and music, or what else do you need? What will make you comfortable?
I'm going to go report you to the policing office.
What?
Still recording.
Physically attacked by this woman.
Physically attacked? By who?
He said these women earlier, now it's this
woman.
What's your story, baby?
Because I haven't touched anybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never touched you.
I'm recording. I'm sorry.
That's funny, because your video is going to be a bunch of lies. White people love to lie on black women.
White people, literally, this dude left his apartment. He left. I'm racist!
Black girl.
Actually, you can't get arrested for being racist, because you still out here.
Come on. I didn't know black people can be racist.
Black people cannot be racist. Y'all
Okay.
literally rape and steal people from land.
Okay.
So shut the fuck up.
Still recording. I'm in my bikini.
This man been following us for over...
On camera, 2 groups of black women say they were racially profiled at a Hyattsville swimming pool, but the man at the center of both viral incidents says she's only recorded the women and called the police because they were breaking the rules. Michael Quander broke this story. So Michael, how did all this start?
Well, Reese, look, here's the deal. Both groups will admit that they both had glass bottles at the swimming pool. And yes, that's against the rules at most pools. But the man caught up in the middle of both of these incidents says that he saw all of this going on from his apartment window and felt the need to go take matters into his own hands.
Glassware is not allowed.
You see this man recording on his phone? That's Nick Starstreet. He left his apartment on Saturday to let this group of 7 black women know that they were breaking the rules by having glass at the pool.
Okay, so glassware. What else do I need to get rid of? For you to be comfortable.
One of the women agreed to get rid of the glass and appeared to try to de-escalate the situation. But Starstreet reported the group to the leasing office and then called police.
This man called the whole cops on us.
This all went down at the Addition Apartments off East West Highway in Hyattsville. Police showed up, questioned the women, but they couldn't determine if anyone was breaking the law.
We have different perspectives than what he has.
A second incident happened the next day, on Sunday. It was pretty much the same scenario, a pair of black women at the apartment pool with a glass bottle. This time, you can hear one of the women asking Starstreet not to record her. She knocks the camera out of his hand, and then Starstreet calls 911.
Physically attacked by this woman.
You see, Starstreet says the women assaulted him and bruised his chest. He is seen in this video following them in the parking lot while on the phone with police.
I get that people see me following people, but they don't realize that they just assaulted me and I never even engaged with these people.
Despite comments online, Starstreet claims both of these incidents had nothing to do with race. He blames his autism diagnosis for the way he reacted.
The way that my mind works, I don't always click with other people.
You know, a lot of people are not going to see you as the victim here. What do you say to them?
It's the way I think. Like, I mean, I don't see it any other way. That's my problem.
Yeah, now I got to tell you, most people online are not buying that excuse. Now, we did find that this is not the first time that Starstreet has been at the center of controversy online. He has a history of making racially insensitive posts and anti-gay comments. Still, Starstreet says that since these videos went viral, his apartment door was vandalized with the word racist carved in it, and he's also been getting death threats.
I see this, man. It's crazy. Man, y'all, the lady not even white. She talking about some, she got black people in her family, man.
Okay, they got a problem with this.
Bust.
They have a problem with this, right?
What that tells me that you're saying
It's crazy.
is right there.
She talking about some, she ain't got a problem with what's going on.
Yes, it's on Facebook.
Apparently this had a Jason mask on it before, and somebody stole the Jason mask off of it.
I said that that's why, but you know what?
Does not sound like there was any ill intent.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we have to understand, we have to start creating organizations for ourselves. We can't join a system designed to hurt us and hope to change it. It's not broken, it's working like it's supposed to. Black police officers enforce white supremacy. Until we're ready to recreate our own police force and actually enforce and protect our communities, then outsiders are going to continue to come in and harm us. And us protecting our children alone should be enough to make us want to get on code to do what we have to do. But some of us think we can change the system from within the system. The first black cop was appointed in 1878 in Boston. Horatio J. Homer was the first black cop ever, and that was during the beginning of the growth of Jim Crow. And of course he had to face racism every day, but he couldn't exactly enforce the law on white citizens. And as a black cop today, do something that gets a little white kid hurt and see what happens to you. Or do something that gets a blonde white woman killed and see what happens to you. And then as soon as you take your uniform off, you're no different from the rest of us. Even sometimes with the uniform on. In St. Louis, a black cop, Milton Green, was shot by his fellow officers while he was outside of his own house. So let's see how a black cop could end up getting shot by his fellow police officers.
Shirley, it was 2 years ago this Friday, police officer Milton Green was shot by a fellow officer, leaving him unable to return to work. Green says the city has been dragging its feet on the investigation, and now he's at risk of losing his home.
The moment he was shot, everybody knew that he was shot by a fellow officer.
In June of 2017, a chase involving St. Louis police and a stolen car came to an end near Park and Astra in the city's North Point neighborhood. St. Louis police said the suspects and officers exchanged gunfire. The lawsuit says 3 suspects inside the car got out and ran past the home of off-duty police officer Milton Green, who was in his driveway. One of the suspects pointed his gun at Green. Green drew his service weapon, identified himself as police, and told the suspect to drop his gun. The suspect ran. Uniformed officers arrived and ordered Green to drop his gun and get on the ground. Green complied, identified himself as an officer, and showed his badge. The lawsuit says the detective allowed Green to get up and told other officers Green was police. The suit alleges Green was giving the detective a description of the suspect when Officer Christopher Tanner arrived on the scene, shouted, "Drop your weapon," while simultaneously shooting Green in the arm. Green's family witnessed the incident. Green was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery.
Anybody that kept into the emergency room, I told them what happened. My story never changed. It's not going to change then, it's not going to change now. I told them what happened.
Yet that was not the story provided by the then interim police chief that night.
An off-duty officer who lives in that area heard the commotion, came out of his house to render assistance, and during the exchange of gunfire, he was struck in his arm.
Green says he has gone through 6 months of physical therapy. He has a plate from his elbow to his wrist and lasting effects.
It's numb. It hurts. These 2 fingers, sometimes I get the shakes, or I get shooting pains through it.
He says he can't do simple tasks around the house, and he can't do his job.
Can't carry a gun. Tried to hold, to squeeze it, can't squeeze it.
Green became an officer to support his family and to make a difference in the community where he grew up.
It was, if you could save one life that day, feel like you did your job, especially in the city of St. Louis.
Now he's at risk of losing his home, and he isn't able to provide for his 4 children, who are still trying to make sense of what happened to their dad.
I had my badge out, and they said, well, why did he still shoot you? Their trust is It's rough. They're scared.
Green's attorney, Javad Kazali, says the city's unwillingness to meet with Green left them with no other options than to file suit.
And instead of taking responsibility and backing Officer Green, the city has abandoned him.
The city says it does not comment on pending litigation. 2 17-year-olds were arrested with that original incident, and 2 guns were recovered. Third suspect got away. Now, despite the police saying that these suspects were driving a stolen vehicle and fired multiple shots at police that night, the circuit attorney's office says the charges against the defendants were dismissed and the matter remains under investigation.
So this brother Milton Green was outside his own home working on a car with his neighbor when somebody who was supposed to be involved in a police chase ran close to his home. So this brother, being a cop, pulled his gun and badge and he yelled, "Drop your gun, get on the ground." But the guy took off running. So then the other cops who were in the chase saw this brother Milton Green and they told him to drop his gun and get on the ground. And he complied, he dropped his gun, he got on the ground, and he let them know he was a cop. And even though they weren't listening to him, there happened to be another cop there who knew him and vouched for him. So then while this brother Milton Green was standing there talking to the other cops with his badge out, all of a sudden another cop, Christopher Tanner, pulled up on the scene, got out his car, yelled, "Drop the gun," and shot at the same time. This man got out his car immediately shooting at this brother. Now the police chief, Lawrence O'Toole, said he was shot during the shootout and this brother was hit with friendly fire. But the police seem to be the only one doing the shooting around this brother Milton Green. They even arrested this brother Milton Green's neighbor who was just outside working on his car with him, and they still had him handcuffed even after Milton Green vouched for him. Now, although this brother Milton Green was only trying to help his fellow officers, to this day they still haven't came to his defense or helped him at all. But the police do have their capes on for this cop Christopher Tanner.
Well, Milton Green was wounded in the right arm. His lawsuit says he's disabled and unable to return to duty, and he believes race is a factor, not only the night of the shooting, but how the department has handled the case.
It's about right here.
Officer Milton Green shows where the bullet entered his arm. He says he'll never be able to work the streets again as an officer.
Sometimes it's numb. I get the shakes a lot with it. I get shooting pains.
2 years ago, a stolen car crashed near Green's house. He was working with a neighbor on a car in the driveway at the time. Well, during a gun battle between police and teenage suspects, a fellow officer shot Green, although Green had already interacted with other officers at the scene who knew he was with the department.
I don't understand how I was shot due to me having my badge out, my gun straight down to the side, pointing down at the ground. It wasn't moving at all.
The officer who shot Green is white. Green believes race was a factor in how the situation played out. His attorney says the neighbor that Green was with was also detained by police for several hours, even after Green vouched for him.
Leads us to believe that race was a factor, that the cops targeted them because they were black and happened to be on the scene.
A 13-page lawsuit says Green is drowning in bills and his home is nearing foreclosure. The St. Louis Police Department has declined to comment on the case, but the public safety director had this to say regarding the actions of the officer who shot Green.
I'm always disappointed when mistakes are made, when officers are alleged to have been reckless and careless. We don't know that yet.
Now, Green says although he's still getting paid by the department, he can't get overtime or work secondary, which would bring in more money. The lawsuit also says as a result of the shooting, his marriage crumbled and he is now divorced.
Now, this brother Milton Green is injured for life. He lost his job as a cop. He can't work no more. And he can't use his arms and hands like usual. But the police union, who usually finds a way to raise money for cops who shoot unarmed black people, didn't help this brother or speak up for this brother at all. The police still haven't even processed his pension because they're hiding his report. And this is not unusual. When you take off your uniform, and even sometimes when you still have your uniform on, you're seen just like the rest of us. In Prince George, Virginia, another brother who was a cop, Jakaya Colson, was shot by his fellow officers. So let's see how this brother ended up getting killed.
A new chapter in the friendly fire death of a local police officer. Prince George's County officer Jakaya Colson was shot and killed during a police station ambush Only the bullet that killed Colson came from another officer. This happened in 2016, and more than 2 years later, Officer Colson's parents are still fighting. Today, their attorney officially announced a wrongful death lawsuit, and Stephanie Ramirez just spoke to that attorney.
Do we want our officers shooting at people that they cannot see?
Frustrated at the investigation, Thursday, an attorney for Jakaya Colson's family said his parents want the truth, transparency, and accountability. The Colsons filed a lawsuit against Prince George's County and its officer, Taylor Cross, the colleague who shot and killed Colson during the March 2016 ambush.
As he's screaming, "Police, police," Officer Cross fires from a football field away.
The lawsuit slammed Cross's actions as negligent on the day of the ambush. On March 13, 2016, police say Michael Ford opened fire on the county's police station while his brothers filmed from their car. Colson was a narcotics detective. He was in plain clothes when he drove up to the station and fired at Ford. Police say those heroic actions were what allowed officers to finally close in on the suspect. But in the midst of this, Officer Cross grabbed his service rifle. The lawsuit says he fired shots from behind a fence at some 35 to 80 yards away at someone who did not match the description for a heavy-set black male in all black with dreads.
We're not in a position that we're going to talk about race. I think these actions were reckless.
The response?
We believe that there has been 100% transparency.
John Erzin, the spokesperson for the county state's attorney's office, says a grand jury reviewed all the evidence and decided not to file criminal charges. We're also told some officers may have believed there was more than one shooter. Erzin said someone will be held accountable. That someone is the suspect, Michael Ford. His trial is expected to begin October 22nd of this year. Outside of the Prince George's County Courthouse, Stephanie Ramirez, USA 9.
Ford is facing life behind bars for Officer Colson's death. His two brothers already pleaded guilty, but their sentences will not be determined until after Ford's trial.
Now, it started after a brother, Michael Ford, started shooting at the police station for some reason. Now, I don't know what the brother was going through while he was shooting at the cops, even though he never actually hit any cops. But this brother, Jakaya Colson, who was also a cop, put his life on the line and jumped in the line of fire. And other cops said his actions were heroic and he helped stop the shooting and allowed them to arrest his brother, Michael Ford. Then after the shooting had stopped for at least 30 seconds and the suspect was already on the ground, unarmed, another cop, Taylor Cross, saw this brother from 80 yards away and opened fire on him from behind the fence. This cop claimed he didn't see who he was shooting at, but he was still shooting anyway. Even though this brother, Jakaya Colson, a fellow cop, didn't fit the description of a heavy-set black man with dreads, he did fit the description of being black. Now, the only person who was killed was his brother, Jakaya Colson, who was shot by his fellow officers. But they never charged or blamed this cop, Taylor Cross, at all. They blamed his brother, Michael Ford, for this cop's racial bias. And they said since he created a combat zone, they're going to charge him with this cop's murder, instead of the person who actually killed him. And they added it to his charges and gave him 195 years. Now, this cop, Taylor Cross, said he didn't have a police uniform on. He didn't get out the car with a police vest on. And as far as he's concerned, he could have been another shooter. But somehow it's only certain cops out of uniform that get identified as the criminal, even surrounded by other cops who vouch for them and know they're cops. But this is what happens when you enforce a system designed to hurt you. If you're going to put your life on the line, you might as well do it for something that'll help you and your kids in the future. But we have to understand, we are all we got. We don't have any friends. And once we realize that and get on code, nothing will stop us. That's why they do everything to keep it from happening. But at the end of the day, we don't have any other choice.
Better turn around, Yum. Don't come back! Don't come back! Don't come back! It is a neighborhood corner with him.
Come on, Yum. We will
riots down this block, and it's white people start saying, "Get out of here, niggas. You know, get out of my neighborhood. Don't come to this neighborhood." Then they start hitting on her. Throwing rocks and everything else. Throwing rocks. Because we were in their neighborhood. We went on a bike hike to McDonald's. We didn't mean to bother anybody. We had a nice time. We saw a parade. We saw a gathering. So we went down there to see what was happening. All right. I mean, we didn't bother anybody. We weren't looking for trouble. I never even know people around here were like that. I've never experienced anything like this in my life.
What happened to you?
Nothing happened to me, but this little boy, short boy about my size, or little short, had picked up a rock, and he was in the front of all these tall honkies. But he threw the rock. He tried to hit my sister, but he almost hit me about that much away from me. And I was sure wish he had hit me with that rock. I would pick up the rock right next to me and hit him right dead in his face. They always say niggas are doing everything. They always say we're doing everything, right? Every time the white people come down the block, we don't push them out their neighborhood and throw rocks and start hitting them. We don't bother the white people around our neighborhood, but when we get in a white neighborhood, they just push us out. Yeah. Everybody with us, they said we're nothing, you know, that we're a piece of dirt, dogs. I mean, that's the way you treat an animal. I mean, God, we're human beings. You don't treat other people like that. It's just wrong. Black, white, I don't care. A person is a person. Skin should have no bearing on how you treat a person. That's just wrong. I hate their goddamn guts. I can't say that I hate them. I can't say that it's totally the kids' fault. I mean, I'm sure their parent had some bearing on the way they feel and everything else. I think it's just the system. I don't know. I can't say that I hate them because I don't hate anybody.
Do you forgive them?
No. No. Can't take back no hurt. But they gonna always do that. They always spit on us like we some dogs. They always gonna spit back on them. Ain't nothing gonna change.
Darius Stewart says this image cut deep.
It was like a Google map picture, and it had like all the black kids' faces on it, and it said Negro Hill.
It's an image with 25 black teens. It was circulating on social media, created by 2 white Chaska High School students. Sophomore Darius Stewart is one of the 25 pictured.
I was like shocked. I was like, wow, like they took the time of their day to do this.
Darius said he found out in class. Soon after, he and the other black kids pictured were summoned.
They called all the black kids down to the office, to the dean and stuff. And they told us to go in this room with the two of the boys that made it. They made them apologize and stuff, and like asked us, do we have any questions like on why the kids made it.
Leaving Darius with 2 questions.
I said, like, what did we do to deserve this? I said, what was your intentions towards us? One of the kids said to try to be funny and stuff.
Who's laughing?
Some people might think it's funny, but me, I don't think it's funny.
The sophomore is rarely left speechless. But this blatant display of racism is different. In a statement, a district spokesperson said, quote, racism and bigotry have no place at Chaska High School, and the students responsible face significant consequences for their actions, including disciplinary action. Were they sent to detention, suspended, expelled? We don't know. The district says, quote, we can't discuss any specifics due to student privacy laws. And the district hasn't been talking.
This ain't the first time like something like this happened.
In December, we spoke with a family who said their son's gym shirt was stolen from his locker and returned with the N-word written on it. In February, some Chaska students were accused of wearing blackface, taunting other black students on social media. And in 2018, the district made national headlines because students at a Chaska High School football game were accused of wearing blackface. What do you want the district to do moving forward?
I want them to try to fix it and like stop this, because like this is a big problem.
And the teen, who is rarely speechless.
I don't think it's gonna stop though.
You're not hopeful?
I mean, I am, but like I don't think this like gonna stop. Like this racism, I don't think it's gonna stop.
Struggles to remain hopeful.
Harassing me out
You're
here,
on
man.
camera too, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, it don't matter. Record all day. Harassing me out here because I walked through an alley.
You walk through a yard.
Come on, man, cut it out.
Someone's backyard.
Verna! Come out here a second. You don't mind?
Oh, what is it now?
Well, do you know this gentleman?
Yeah, I know him.
Okay, well, how do you know him?
Because he come here.
He comes here?
See my son, yeah.
Okay, was he here today to see you?
He was a few minutes ago.
And I was just leaving.
I wouldn't let him in.
You wouldn't let him in? Why not?
Because I didn't want no boat in here.
People, yeah,
Did you want him in
exactly.
there? Did you want him in your backyard?
I walked straight through there, bro. Like
He
you
was walking
tripped
around your
out.
backyard.
No, I wouldn't. I was walking straight through there, mama, like I usually do.
The back gate, I guess. I don't know.
He was walking around because when I pulled through the back alley, he was in your
lying.
back door.
You lying?
Mm-hmm.
I was walking straight through there, mama.
They're picking vegetables?
I was.
You weren't outside when he was back there?
No.
No?
I wasn't picking no vegetables out of the garden. In my kitchen.
Oh, okay, you're cutting vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is Abby still here right now?
No, he gone somewhere. I don't know what happened.
This ain't got nothing to do with him, though.
I'm talking to her.
That's crazy, man. I'm recording
He
them.
thinks he's being unjustly harassed.
Yep, because I showed them.
Mm-hmm. Walking through people's yards.
And I told you I was just walking through there. Because he wasn't here.
Mm-hmm. He said he's here to see Jennifer Castillo.
No, you a damn
Crystal.
lie.
He said what?
Crystal, he's here to
I
see
don't
Crystal.
even, what is you saying?
Yeah, you know
Man, you
Crystal?
making up names, bro?
Crystal's the one you said.
You
Jennifer actually
making,
lives here.
you making up names like,
No, Crystal.
this nigga making up names and shit.
Crystal ain't
Y'all
been
see
here
this
today?
shit? This nigga making up names on the front porch. Yeah, man, we should have went live on this one.
All right, Vernon, I appreciate your time, okay?
Okay, sure.
All right. Sir, you're free to go.
Yeah, I know it. I know it. I don't have warrants. Free to go. That's me. Yeah. Look at this whole clown ass shit, man. Come on, man.
For now.
Yeah, for now, always free.
Yeah. Choose your route wisely.
You say what now?
Choose your route wisely.
Do what now wisely?
I get out of that roadway because that's going to be...
Do what wisely? Ah, really, man? Damn, you ain't got to threaten me. I ain't did nothing wrong to you. Fuck, boys.
You see this, right?
The tables have turned. Watch these two young kids pull over police officers from Gainesville, Florida.
Don't shoot me. Don't shoot me, don't lie.
That's 9-year-old Ziana Oliphant on the right. You may remember, she's the girl from Charlotte, North Carolina, who brought the room to tears with her emotional plea during a city council meeting to bridge the police department's relationship with the community.
And I guess that's how we're treated. It's a shame that our fathers and mothers are killed and we can't even see them anymore.
2 months later in New York City, she met Gainesville police officer Bobby White while filming this campaign for Microsoft.
There's a damaged relationship between America's youth and the American police officer. We're going to change that.
White's the officer caught on dash cam video earlier in 2016 playing basketball with teens in the street after a neighbor called to complain they were making too much noise.
Hey, that's a nice hoop.
It was this moment, seen all over the internet, that pushed him to start the nonprofit called the Basketball Cop Foundation.
What did I do?
The organization works to build relationships between police and youth across the U.S. by holding events like this one.
Why you doing that? Don't do nothing.
Ziana was flown to Florida to participate so she can be a role model for other children on how to have better ties with law enforcement.
Hey, he's searching me.
Playing sheriff to help close a divided gap.
So the video you just see is of this police officer called Anthony L. Johnson. He goes around the neighborhood, the Columbus neighborhood, and he dance and play ball with black kids and black people. And but as you can see, he play ball with you, and in the next minute, he punching someone in the face. So we've been trying to tell our people that you can't be friends with the police because they have an obligation to arrest you. Okay?
Go ahead before I get back to him.
LeVar, can I switch gears with you because I have a question here.
You can switch gears with me anytime.
Let's stay focused here. All right.
I just wanted to first of all applaud you on how professional you were and how you handled everything yesterday, following the inappropriate comments. I wanted to know if has any of the Ball family members actually reached out to you? Has LeVar reached out to you at all to personally apologize?
I haven't heard from anybody, but to be honest with you, I shut my phone off after work, so I was just in chill mode.
Okay. Do you think LeVar's going to be invited back on the show anytime soon? Should ESPN just stop giving this guy airtime at this point, or?
I have no idea. Those decisions are above my pay grade.
Okay. Can I just ask how Jalen is handled the situation? Does he have a message for LeVar at all? Do you have a message for LeVar?
I think Jalen would have just liked if he had apologized to me publicly. Okay.
ESPN obviously had your back. They said he was completely appropriate and let him be aware of that. Do you think that they should do anything further at this point, or are you satisfied with the outcome?
No, I'm satisfied. Yeah, 100%. ESPN was really supportive, and I appreciate it. All the executives had my back, so much appreciated.
This past week, reportedly on ESPN, you were banned from all their platforms.
I'm gonna be banned, and I don't work for them. I gotta be banned from ESPN. I got my own show.
Was your comment? What was your comment? I mean, when they could switch gears at any time. I mean, we didn't see it.
I don't even have to respond to that on the fact that I meant no sexual intent or nothing on the fact that switch gears means change topics to me.
Right.
Her mind in the gutter if she thinking something else. Only time I hit on her if she breaking in my house and I mistake her for the boogeyman.
Hey, I like it.
And I just came from my house.
Knock it off.
Knock
because
what
she
off?
knows your fucking name.
What's my name?
Please just go back to the pool. You're drunk.
She's drunk. Please record her. Record. Oh, don't touch me.
Yo, just go.
We're going back. We're going to Mary's right now. All I'm doing is taking a hamburger and soda over to a freaking lifeguard.
So go ahead. Yes, why are you bothering us?
Yes.
We're not doing nothing to you. You came up to us.
Each other phones, texting, and you just came and bothered us.
Why are you doing this shit?
Because a fly just went in my eye. What the fuck is your problem?
Because I don't
She's
need no
crazy.
fucking gangs around here.
There's no gang.
Bitch.
Thanks, James. that
gangs around
I
here.
got grandchildren. I don't need anybody hurting them.
All right.
You're crazy, man.
You're drunk.
I'm crazy.
Yes.
I'm protective.
You're
drunk.
crazy. You should not go home. Don't watch no more TV.
Yes.
Do not watch the news. Please don't hit me. Yeah. Back up, man.
What are you gonna do to me?
I'm not gonna do nothing.
I'm not afraid.
I'm not afraid either.
I'm a school bus driver. I'm not afraid.
That's good. That's good
because
for you.
Know what?
That's good for you.
I'm right here.
Oh, I see you. Back up, man. Back up.
Knock it off.
Back up.
Stay away from the Highlands.
I live in the Highlands.
You live.
I live in the Highlands.
Where do you live in the Highlands?
None of your business.
It's none of my business.
Yes.
But you think we too black to be living over there?
Please
no,
go.
absolutely not.
All right, so
I have 2 grandchildren that are black.
All right, so why you keep messing with us?
I'm asking you.
Asking us what?
Why are you giving me a problem?
You came up to us and gave us a problem. You started this whole thing.
You were posing for pictures.
So what?
And somebody keeps breaking the damn basketball net.
All right.
We bought that net.
Have you ever asked your neighbor Brian?
Yeah, he be doing crazy stuff.
Have you ever asked him, Brian? You know he be shooting BB guns and shit. Why do you ask us? Because we're black.
You're on film.
I'm on film doing what? What?
You're the one.
Crazy ass.
You're the
crazy.
Go to the pool. And I'm telling the lifeguard there's flies on that burger.
Now I know.
You probably want. Yo, you need some bass?
Hey, listen to me right now. Stay away from me.
You stay away from us. You came up to us.
Stay away from the pool.
You came up to us.
Here, and I'd like to walk on the green belt.
Oh, my dick.
Let's go.
I got a sniper trying to do my license plates. We here for the kids, but she trying to get us. She calling the tow truck, so I got my license plates for USP 8986.
USP 89. Watch out.
Got my son with me, and this is what she on. It's in Charlottesville too. And Branchland didn't have a problem with us parking here. She was just taking it amongst herself of being nasty with everybody and trying to get everybody car towed. But we're going to continue to enjoy ourselves at this lovely carnival today. She said she'll be here for when they come tow my car, not knowing that when the tow truck come, I'm just going to pull away.
This phone is 703.
Come on.
Oh! He threw that! Oh my God! He threw his food! He just threw food at this man!
Everyone, please stop.
He just threw. So you think that's okay? You think that's okay? You're saying that's okay that he threw his food? Call the police on him! Call the police on him! He threw food at this man! Sir, this woman just treated me like trash. Do not get in my face, ma'am. I told you that woman took my drink and threw it, and you made it sound like it was my fault.
A woman who says she was forced to give up her seat at a J. Alexander's restaurant is claiming discrimination.
The woman shot this video moments after she says the bartender took her drink and poured it down the sink, telling her she'd no longer be served. Larry Spruill has the latest on the claims and what the restaurant is saying tonight.
It's the video that's going viral. It shows the aftermath of an incident inside the J. Alexander restaurant in West Bloomfield involving Leah Gant, employees, and a customer. Leah Gant recorded the video after she claims she was forced to leave the restaurant. Gant says it all started when a restaurant employee tried to force her to give up her seat for two white men on June 20th.
When I did not get up, for her to say, "I am not going to serve you," and I had done nothing wrong.
When she did not get up, Gant says the bartender told her she's not going to serve her and took her drink and dumped it in the sink. But Gant tells me things did not stop there.
And she's yelling at me while I'm on the phone.
Gant says shortly after another customer threw his food towards her. This part of the video shows Gant being escorted out of the restaurant. Monday, attorney Maurice Davis with the Davis Law Group announced another customer, J.L. Jefferson, claims he was also treated unfairly that night on his wedding anniversary when he asked about their food.
At this point, an Arab gentleman from the bar emerged using the N word and told us to go home. N's go home. At that point, management assisted with concealing this gentleman inside of J. Alexander to avoid police contact.
J. Alexander provided this statement to Local 4. It says in part, "We regret this incident occurred and extend our apology to our guest whose experience was interrupted by the inappropriate behavior of other guests." Now, the statement did also mention that no employee here used racial or abusive racial slurs here towards any customer. They also mentioned that the employees here did not throw any food, but they did not elaborate on the employee mentioned that tossed out her drink. Now, police are investigating this case. They are looking for the customer involved.
Organizers say it's the largest Juneteenth celebration in the nation, and it's right here in the Arklatex. And tonight, the mayor of Shreveport apologized to a very special guest. NBC6's Dominic Dillon has more.
After more than a decade, the city of Shreveport is closing the chapter of a dark time in history.
It is so wonderful to get a chance to come here and perform, especially after the way my father was treated.
During the 33rd annual Let the Good Times Roll Festival, Mayor Adrian Perkins issued an apology and the keys to the city to the late Sam Cooke's family for the unfair treatment Cooke received while in Shreveport.
With that very dark incident, there's a silver lining to that cloud. After he left and got arrested here in Shreveport, it inspired him to write the song, "A Change Is Gonna Come."
In 1963, Cooke performed in Shreveport. He made reservations at the Holiday Inn on North Market, but when he arrived, he and his family were turned away for being black.
I'm just so honored that Mayor Perkins took out the time to do the apology while I was performing.
In addition to the monumental moment, people also enjoyed unique food and artwork.
This is the festival that celebrates the African American culture, and sometimes we don't, recognize it as much, but this is a very important festival because it reminds us of the heritage of the African American culture.
The festival is hosted each year by Rho Omega and Friends to celebrate Juneteenth, a holiday that commemorates the emancipation of the last enslaved people in the United States.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is facing backlash tonight after what he said. Congress needing to work together, the ability to work with others. But Biden citing segregationist senators as examples of people he's worked with in the past, calling them mean, but that he worked with them. His opponents pouncing tonight, and all of this comes just as the debate over reparations takes center stage on the Hill. Terry Moran in Washington.
In a packed hearing room, an emotional debate. Should the federal government pay billions of dollars in reparations to African Americans who are descended from slaves as a way to make amends for the atrocity of American slavery?
Slavery is the original sin. Slavery has never received an apology.
This hearing, the first on the issue in a decade. Actor Danny Glover and Democratic Senator and presidential candidate Cory Booker making the case for reparations. But even before this hearing began, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell weighing in and sparking controversy.
I don't think reparations for something that happened 150 years ago, for whom none of us currently living are responsible, is a good idea. We've, tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We've elected an African-American president.
That touched a nerve. Writer Ta-Nehisi Coates firing back.
For a century after the Civil War, black people were subjected to a relentless campaign of terror, a campaign that extended well into the lifetime of Majority Leader McConnell.
This debate coming on the same day Vice President Joe Biden drew fire from fellow Democrats for his comments at a fundraiser last night. Recalling a bygone era of civility in Washington, Biden spoke of two segregationist senators, saying of one, Herman Talmadge of Georgia, "One of the meanest guys I ever knew." You go down the list of all these guys. Well, guess what? At least there was some civility. We got things done. And Biden recalling the white supremacist Senator James O. Eastland of Mississippi. "He never called me boy. He always called me son." Several of Biden's rivals in the campaign stunned by his comments, including Senator Kamala Harris.
To coddle the reputations of segregationists, of people who, if they had their way, I would literally not be standing here as a member of the United States Senate, is, I think, it's misinformed and it's wrong.
Terry Moran with us live in Washington tonight. And Terry, the Biden campaign now responding to this controversy?
That's right, David. Biden campaign advisor Anita Dunn saying he wasn't praising those men. Quote, "The point of the story is that you have to be able to work with people, even if they hold positions repugnant to you, in order to make some progress."
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's against slavery reparations. McConnell adding that the country has tried to wash away the sins of slavery by passing landmark civil rights legislation and by electing President Barack Obama. His comments coming as actor Danny Glover and activists are set to testify on the push for reparations before a House committee today. Trent Gilbreth, digital contributor with Atlanta & Company, in for Liza Lucas this morning. Trent, his comments are stirring up a lot of reaction online. Just tell us a few things that people are saying.
That's right, Sheba. We're hearing from a lot of you siding with Senator Majority Leader and some not against it completely. We heard from Christine, who tweeted out, "We may not have the actions, but we owe it to try and repair what those before us have done." Now, we heard from a lot of you on the Morning Rush Facebook page. Richard commented, "It's over, move on." We also heard from Brenda, "We don't live in the past, make the future a better place."
Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it, and that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion, And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RIP to the brother Everett Palmer Jr., to the brother Eric Logan, to the brother Jakaya Colson, and all our people who have been unjustly murdered. But until we're ready to respond with more urgency than they do to get out of the situation that we are in, then the same thing is going to continue to happen. We have hundreds of years of evidence. We can't keep making the same mistakes. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our ancestors already left us the blueprint. We just have to learn how to protect ourselves and the things that we build. And we can do things right now to rebuild our economy. We can do things like nominate the most successful black business people and create a committee strictly to help fund and grow black businesses that everybody can contribute to. Now, make sure they stay transparent and they do what they say they're going to do. But everybody can contribute to it, whether you have $1, 100, 1,000, or 1,000,000. And that'll help expand and grow black businesses that already exist and create new black businesses. And we'll be able to put them in our community so that we can support them. And in return, they can hire us. But until we realize we're all we got, we're going to continue to be subject to somebody else's rules, laws, and punishments. And whatever they say goes, and they can do whatever they want. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.